Hearing here from Claire that we're going to have a quick internet reset here because there is some stuttering on the stream. But John Tata playing out his fleet lieutenant and allowing Mon Mothma to defeat Bazine there. We should be coming right back once we have that internet reset. Hopefully, going to be able to fix that.
All right, we are back. Sorry for that interruption. Hopefully, we've got things worked out with the internet here. Looks like we have progressed a little bit. We're on the 6 resource turn. We've got Zuckus and the Mist Hunter out for Ray. And John does not have anything on the board right now. So it looks as though Cat has been able to do a good job at keeping that board in check.
Yeah, doing a little detective work here, Josh, from the visible discard piles. Looks like Ray was able to play a now there are two of them, perhaps to bring out that quick Zuckus. And it seems to have led to him having control of the board, but the game is by no means over, and both bases appear to be totally untouched. Also, Ray has used his Tarkin Town at this point.
Yeah, that is right. So the early ping plus Tarkin Town probably taken advantage of by Ray. And now we're going to see R2D2 for John and the Mist Hunter going into John's base for 3 and getting that value. You know, Tower, we've seen Mist Hunter get a lot of value for these CAD decks over the weekend.
Yeah, that Mist Hunter is a card that isn't necessarily the flashiest and most dramatic, but the ability to generate some card draw if you're playing those bounty hunters and or pilots is a nice way to keep things flowing, and it has good stats. One of the things about this game is dedicated card draw cards don't necessarily tend to be that good. but cards that can draw cards as an incidental function and also have relevant stats like C3PO or this Mist Hunter or to some degree even the Agent Callus that we saw earlier. That's a different story, and those tend to be more popular. Now there are some exceptions. So for instance, Dr. Pershing is so efficient that people play him even though he doesn't really do anything other than draw cards most of the time, but he is a bit of an outlier in that respect.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it does appear as though I do believe John must have ramped at some point in this game. He is, I do believe, at least one resource ahead of Ray. So he was actually able to deploy his leader this past round, and he gets into base for 3, restoring that 3 damage.
Okay. Ray on the field and buffed up. More bounty hunters taking the board now, though, with a Bosk from Ray.
And look at that. Bosk is going to ambush and defeat R2D2. And then the CAD triggered ability, 1 damage to the Ray leader unit. So even with that experience token back down to just 6 HP, which means Zuckuss is set up to potentially take Ray out.
That is exactly right, Josh. John Tata may be in some trouble here with with our Cad Bane player poised to defeat Tata's leader. If Tata can't find some kind of solution for that Zuckuss, and it looks like he can't find one.
So Ray is just going to attack and defeat the Bosk that just came in and ambushed here during this phase. So Ray now 5 damage on. Of course, John back to 0 on his base. Thanks to the restore on Ray. And now with that extra damage, Ray is actually able to attack and defeat Ray, the Ray leader unit, with Crafty Smuggler.
Yeah, so Zuckuss gets to preserve his hit points here, and once again, Tada's board is completely cleared. Another interesting facet of this is that because it looks like our Cad Bane player has been focused on board control, there wasn't any damage on Tada's base, which means that Ray's powerful Restore 3 just wasn't relevant.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. Now, we do see Mon Mothma coming out. That's at least the second Mon Mothma that John has played here in game one. Finding Luke Skywalker, certainly a great card to go and get off of Mon Mothma. Action back over to Ray. And I think just for the sake of us not being confused and maybe the viewers as well, maybe Tower will just refer to both of these players with their last name. It's Ray Tan and John Tata. Maybe we should do that. I don't know. Maybe the viewers are confused. I keep saying Ray attacks Ray, and I don't know. I don't want anybody
Yeah,
to get
I've
confused
been
here.
I've been saying arcade player
There you
for some
go.
of these things. It is an awkward naming clip. Maybe that should be a new rule. I mean, obviously it shouldn't, but it would be funny if there was a rule that was like, hey, if you're character in the game, you have to play that leader. Sorry, that's just the rule.
Yeah, there you go. So I'll just refer to Ray as Ray Tan now. We've got the name on the screen. Thank you there, Claire, just to try and save the confusion. Now here comes Blue Leader for John Tata, playing it into or paying the extra 2 resources to put it in the ground arena and ambushing the leader Cad here.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid play. Cad has an odd stat line. He does have raid 2, but his base power is only 2, so a bit vulnerable to ambushers compared to some leaders.
Yeah, he really is. Now, Mist Hunter once again getting some value there, going in for 3. And now Cad again with 5 damage on could be defeated next turn. We'll see how John plays this. Now, Ray still has some ready units in the ground arena. Do you think he takes the controlling route here, or does he be aggressive?
I believe Ray Tan here might. Well, we could really see either strategy working. So one line of play we could see from Ray Tan is to use Zuckuss to clear blue leader. Use leader CAD either to go for the base or to clear Mon Mothma. We do know that John Tata has a Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight in hand that we saw from that Mon Mothma draw. So that is on the way. And if Ray Tan were able to clear Tata's board on this turn, it would potentially inhibit that Luke from getting the full -6/-6 next turn.
Yeah, that is an excellent point, and it does appear Cad takes out Mon Mothma, and it looks like Ray Tan is just going to use Zuckuss to attack the base. But here comes McClunky, returning the crafty smuggler to hand, 3 damage to the wing leader, and the board is cleared, and he was still able to get in that 6 damage.
Yeah. Ray Tan is really putting the pressure on. Now we do see John could still play that Luke Skywalker Jedi Knight and remove Cad Bane because Cad is severely wounded at this point. However, that would be probably one of his only play or one of his only plays for the turn left with just one resource afterwards. And Ray Tan would still have both Zuckuss, the Mist Hunter, and a bunch of resources left to spend. So I think Ray Tan is definitely leading this game right now.
Yeah, great start here, controlling the board very well on Cad's side. John Tata does have the initiative. Let's see what he starts with. Looks like he's only going to pay 3, or he started to pay 3. See if he decides to go with the Luke. We know he has Luke in hand. And it is going to be Luke Skywalker to go ahead and take out the vulnerable Cad Bane leader unit. But as you mentioned, that may be the only play we see from John Tata here in this turn.
Yeah, we got we have Ray Tan losing his leader here, but still with a bunch of resources, still with Zuckuss, still with Mist Hunter, and the potential to do even more damage to Tata's base. I do think that now there are 2 of them that we saw in the discard pile from Ray Tan, potentially a very valuable card, and McClunky can also be a card that can generate a lot of value for its cost. But the game is by no means over. John Tata does have some quite relevant in-game plays, and we'll see what Ray Tan is going to pull out here to counter.
This is a pivotal turn, in my opinion. Ray has to know, or Ray Tan has to know, that John is vulnerable here, and so if you can push the board, if you can create a big board presence and go wide, this Ray Data Vault deck doesn't really have an answer for wide boards. They don't have any kind of big board wipe or anything. So we'll see. Now the Relentless Pursuit just putting on the shield token on Zuckuss, and then Hotshot Blaster coming in, taking out Luke, and Zuckuss is still on the board.
Yep. Very interesting.
Such an interesting play. It's one that you don't really see. The Relentless Pursuit. You choose a friendly unit. It captures an enemy non-leader unit that costs the same or less. And then it says if the friendly unit is a bounty hunter, give a shield token to it. So the Relentless Pursuit simply played to give Zuckuss the shield token because he's a bounty hunter, and taking out Luke Skywalker, which was certainly a threat on John Tata's side. Great play for Ray Tan here in game 1.
I think that might be the first time that I've seen a Relentless Pursuit being played just for a shield with no capture, but under the circumstances, it seems like a pretty reasonable choice, allowing Ray Tan to keep an 8/6 Zuckuss on the board instead of trading it with Luke.
Yeah, I have never seen that exact interaction either, but Ray Tan thinking a little bit outside of the box, a way to remove Luke and keep his big threat all at the same time. Mist Hunter was also able to get in for another 3 damage, so we have 12 damage on Data Vault now, just 3 damage on Tarkin Town. We do see John using that last resource he had available last turn after playing the Luke Skywalker, playing Clone Deserter, does have Restore 1, but when Ray Tan defeats that Clone Deserter, there is a bounty, and Ray Tan would be able to draw a card. Now we're lining up another 7. Is it another Luke Skywalker here? Or I think it must be U-Wing Reinforcement.
U-wing reinforcement, very powerful. Let's see
Very,
here.
very curious what John Tata is looking for off of this U-wing reinforcement. Can't quite see all of the options there. Do think we saw maybe a blue leader in there, a Sundari Peacekeeper, Battlefield Marine. So few of the options. Looks like Village Protectors in that stack of cards as well.
Three
Looks like,
units.
okay, he's finding three here. Looks like Battlefield Marine, Mon Mothma, and the blue leader. So that will get him a little bit extra value when he plays out the Mon Mothma here, as he'll get to search for a Rebel card. And look at this, he finds another Luke Skywalker off of Mon Mothma. I believe that's the second time in this game he's found Luke off of Mon. John Tata has to be thrilled with that find.
Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight, really an excellent card, Josh. And yeah, Mon Mothma allowing John Tata to draw that powerful unit more reliably.
And check that out. So interesting play with the blue leader. John Tata had 2 extra resources, paid those 2 resources to ambush Zuckuss for 5. Now we do see Surprise Strike put on the Zuckuss. He hits for, I believe that was 11 damage to John Tata's base, but now with that 5 damage, you see the restore unit there taking out Zuckuss. So pretty big play, getting the big threat off of Raytan's board.
Yeah. Now with that copy of the clone deserter removed, it's going to be a draw from bounty for Raytan. And now we're seeing Boba Fett hitting the field. Classic Boba Fett Disintegrator, considered one of the best cards in the game in the Spark of Rebellion set. No longer as much of a bomb as it used to be, but still a solid card.
Yeah, no doubt. Again, getting the value with the bounty hunters and Mist Hunter. And now we see Bazine coming out for Raytan, taking a look at John Tata's hand. What do we think? Is he going after maybe Luke or Home One? Those seem to be the 2 big threats. Tough choice here.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting pick. I mean, home one. So if the game ends up going pretty long, home one is, but even if it doesn't end up going long, home one is very good. What are we going for here?
It's tough. You could see that he was
Home one.
looking through the discard pile to see what kind of value John Tata is going to get off the Home One, and Raytan absolutely thinking that Home One is the better value here and strips that from John's hand.
Yep, very interesting.
Now, John Tata with the initiative as we move forward. Keep in mind, John has 25 damage on his base, so we're certainly getting to a point where, with some pumps, John in the danger zone here.
Yeah, it does seem like Ray-Chan has done a pretty good job of controlling the flow of this game as a whole, getting a powerful board built up early and kind of suppressing a lot of John Tata's plays. But we know that John Tata's not out yet.
Yeah, definitely do not count out John Tata at any time here. He's got the initiative. Let's see the first play that we make. Looks like he may be paying 5, or he's counting 5. Now, on the board for Raytan, we are seeing right now 7 damage, which is 1 shy from threatening with Fatal. But keep in mind, we've already seen the Surprise Strike. We've seen Hot Shot Blaster, so there are pumps available. And John going to utilize the 5 resources to ambush with the blue leader in the ground arena, a 5-5, defeating Boba Fett.
Yeah, that is a blue leader at the top of the screen there, and clearing Boba Fett. So now we're going to have only 4 damage on board here from Ray Tan.
Yeah, one of those threats in the ground arena removed. Now Ray Tan still has plenty of resources to use. And every damage could matter here. And he is going to surprise strike with Bazine. That's 4 damage to base, 29 damage on John Tata's base. And once again, he's just 1 damage shy from what we see on the board.
Yeah, that's right. If we see that Mist Hunter swing, it is going to be off by 1, but if there's another attack pump, it could be the game. There isn't. John Tata on 32 HP.
Wow, so close here. Admiral Akbar being played for John Tata, destroying the Bazine Natal. And now we're going to get into base with the Battlefield Marine. That's 6 damage on Ray Tan's base. And what are
If
we going
you're
to
Ray,
see?
do you just claim? Like, Tata only has 2 resources. I'm not sure that he has something that can stop Mist Hunter here.
That is a good point. I don't think we saw anything else in hand that would have stopped it for 2 resources. But he's going to play Jabba the Hutt, and he's going to get, now there are 2 of them. So interesting stuff. That does open the door for John Tata if he doesn't have an answer for either of these units to claim the initiative. Now, one thing this does, Tower, is now we have a unit in each arena that can finish this game in 1 action next turn.
That is a good point, Josh. Tata is in some trouble. One thing we could potentially see is, I don't know. I mean, we could see a U-wing reinforcement into a sentinel in both space and ground. That's a conceivable thing that could happen. I don't think it will happen, but it's a conceivable thing. It looks like Ray Tan may be playing another relentless pursuit.
Yeah, another pursuit that's going to capture, it looks like the blue leader.
Now, in chat, we have a viewer asking how much time is left for the match. I believe they are running this event as an cut. Normally, the top cut is timed, but with extended time. But they have decided to run this one with a totally untimed cut, which I think is pretty good, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes it very interesting. And, I don't think any of these matches are going to be extremely long. We did not get any hard control decks in the top 8. So the blue leader captured by Mist Hunter. John has claimed the initiative. He has to have an answer for both of these units with just 1 HP remaining, or be able to heal with his next action out of fatal range.
Yeah, let's see here. I don't know. It is looking grim for John Tata. He's clinging to life, but it's not looking like a good state here.
What does John Tata have up his sleeve? I don't think he has anything here. And game 1 is going to go to Ray Tan here in the semifinals. Cad Bane on top.
Solid win there for Ray Tan, able to get a lot of value from various plays there, and ultimately it really felt like Ray Tan was ahead basically throughout this match. And we're going to see whether or not he can maintain that powerful position going into the second throughout this match. And we're going to see whether or not he can maintain that powerful position going into the second game of this top 4 match. If Ray Tan can get the win, he's going to.
Absolutely. Very well played by Ray Tan. And, one thing is these units in the early, even into the mid game, and slightly in the late game, as Cad Bane 7 cost unit to 7/7. These units are just overall bigger than most of the units that John Tata is playing, and it seems like these units on Cad's side of the board just kind of eating up all of these little threats. And John had a real tough time sticking a board early to mid game in game one.
Yeah, now I do think, getting the board to stick against Cad Bane Pings, Tarkentown, McClunky. Now there are two of them getting big value for Cad early on. It's a tall order. And ultimately, Ray was able to do a good job there. I also thought it was interesting how Ray Tan focusing on clearing Tada's units early on meant that even though John Tada's leader Ray was able to flip and I believe swing twice, her restore three didn't do anything either time.
Yeah, definitely not the full value there. And you do make a good point with all of those pings and CAD Tarkin, or excuse me, and Tarkentown's ability definitely makes it a lot tougher. And again, not to mention that some of these units that we're seeing come out, they just outclass some of the smaller units that John is putting on the table. So we'll see here as we go into game two how this plays out. It looks as though John has opted to allow Raytan to start with the initiative. I'm taking a look at the sideboard here for John, and I'm not really sure that there's anything that is going to be a huge benefit or just really improve things for him. But we do have one notable card in Ray Tan's sideboard. He does have Cham Syndulla. Now, we did see John ramp in the first game. Cham is always one of those good answers to match that ramp to be able to deploy your leader at the same time. And not to mention, it's a big 5/4 body.
Yeah, Cham Syndulla can be a highly relevant card. I think that in the Spark of Rebellion set, I played a lot with double red Sabine. And at that time, you would not, Cham Syndulla wasn't out yet, but you would be playing the Saw Gerrera unit, the double red one that was also a four cost 5/4. That stat line can be very relevant. And additionally, having an ability that can be good, pretty solid as well. You know, the ability to counter an opponent's ramp and ramp yourself can be pretty solid.
Yeah, that is absolutely right. There are times where that ramp from Cham Syndulla matching you with your opponent just absolutely changes the landscape of a game and can end up giving you the momentum to carry to victory. Now, it looks as though both of these players not satisfied with their opening hand. We're going to see a mulligan from both of them going into the start of game two.
Double mulligan moving into that second round should be interesting to see what happens there.
So here we
In
go.
chat, there was some discussion of what could possibly have saved Tata in the last game. Maybe a Ewing into two Sentinels, but even then, seems like a situation where Ray Chan may well have had the answers. Let's see if Tata can find better early footing in this second game. If John Tata from KTOD can get this win, we are going to be moving on to game three. But if Ray Tan can give another dominating performance there, he'll end up going straight to the finals.
Yeah, that is absolutely right. So this side of the bracket in the semifinals, you had Cad Bane Tarkentown versus Ray Datavault. On the other side of the bracket, Kura Datavault versus Han One Green. So four different decks in the top four. Something interesting to note, both of the Quinlan decks that made it into the top eight unable to get through into the semifinals. So while you did have two Quinlan in the top eight, once again, Quinlan struggling to get that performance in the top cut.
All right. We're starting off here.
And it looks like the old pass claim may have happened or pass on turn one. They neither one of them make a play on turn one. We're heading to turn two here.
Yeah, not entirely sure what happened there. I think it may have been pass into claim, but one way or another, neither player played anything, and now we're moving on to the second turn of the game.
And here
John
comes
Tata brings out the regional governor.
definitely curious to see what he names here. And we're going to see Boba Fett coming out, the Underworld unit, Cad Bane triggered ability that will deal 1 damage to the regional governor. Now, Governor is going to get bigger with the Ray action ability, which prevents Tarkin Town alone being able to defeat it. Ray Tan just claims the initiative.
Yeah, we've had the buff here. The buff here getting out of range of Tarkentown is pretty nice. Um, that regional governor would normally be a unit that could be cleared by Tarkentown after taking one from Cad Bane's ping. The funny thing is we might see a repeat of that dynamic on the next turn. Ray could play another underworld unit and ping the regional governor again, which would take her back into range to be removed by Tarkentown. But Tata could reply by using Ray's ability to buff the regional governor again with another experience and go back out of range.
Yeah, you have to love these one cost units, or excuse me, these one power units with Ray's action ability because it allows you to use it twice and then it ends up a 3 power and of course boosting up the HP a couple as well. So being able to use the action ability twice from Ray on one unit certainly very good. Now here we go, Ray 10, very interesting play, one that we don't see often, Tower. We see the Hotshot DL44 blaster just being played as the blaster by itself, paying one, attaching it to Boba.
One interesting thing about this also is we have confirmation from Claire that the named governor for Lam, um, but John Tata is going to bounce his own copy of regional governor using Bright Hope, returns it to hand, which removes the experience, but also removes all the damage, and it lets Tata draw an additional card.
And look at this, it's another hotshot blaster. This time it's smuggled. So now Boba is a 7 power unit. John Tata taking 7 to base. That's a very interesting turn for Raytan.
Yeah, a gunslinging Boba Fett disintegrator armed with two hotshot DL44s, dealing some major damage to John Tata's base. And another thing that's interesting about this is with those two buffs on Ray Tan's Boba Fett, like you said, Josh, that Boba is now on 7 power, and 7 power means if John Tata flips Ray, that Boba can defeat her in one hit.
Yes, you are absolutely right. Boba, a big threat. Now, we do know that John runs answers to those big units. He has Fell the Dragon, so that is certainly an answer because now Boba is in that range with 7 power. Fell the Dragon could take it out, but man, this feels quite good. And look at this. We're actually going to see Blue Leader, another great answer. 5 resources for a 5/5 ambusher in the ground arena, trading with Boba Fett. Now, with John Tata able to answer that hotshot blaster Boba Fett, this is feeling like a much better start for John Tata here. Now, we do see Sabine, but John has a full hand of cards, 6 cards in hand right now.
Yeah, two home ones in that hand. John Tata's stocked up for some powerful endgame plays here, I see.
Now, it looks like we may have been having a little discussion with a judge. Not sure, a little pause in the gameplay there, but Raytan still has the option to discard one of these cards that we are seeing in John Tata's hand. Now, if he chooses to do that, John would be able to draw a card to replace the discarded card. But yeah, it does seem like a very strong hand for John here. Luke plus double home one. As we get into the later turns, John Tata certainly has some very strong plays coming.
Hmm. I think do we have a camera freeze here? What's going on here?
Yeah, it looks as though there may be some lag. It looks like the camera might have froze up.
Oh, we're moving. Yeah, and it looks like I think the camera may have gone down here. Hopefully that's going to be back up shortly. I believe just before we lost the camera, they were discussing something pertaining to the scenario with that Bazine Natal. Let's see what happens here. Okay, we're back, and John Tata is using Ray's ability to give an experience token to Bright Hope.
Yeah, the Bright Hope getting a little bit bigger, was able to get in for the first couple of damage on Raytan's base here in game two. We're going to see Cad deployed here. Cad Bane deployed before Ray in game two.
Let's see here.
Bright Hope getting into Raytan's base for 3. That's 5 damage on Tarkentown now.
We have five damage on Raytan's Tarkentown base, 8 damage on John Tata's Data Vault. So that's going to be 20 HP left for Raytan and 25 HP left for John Tata. Looks like I think we had a camera flicker or something there, but a relentless pursuit, I believe, was used to capture that Bright Hope with leader Cad Bane there.
Yeah, and that is a great play. Also giving Cad Bane a shield token. And then in response, it looks like John Tata plays timely reinforcements to get 3 X-Wing tokens into the space arena.
Hmm. Yeah, the timely reinforcements, they aren't so timely in terms of defending the space arena because there isn't exactly a space threat for those temporary sentinels to block, but it is a card that's going to generate a bunch of units and allow John Tata to create some threats of his own in space.
And keep in mind, as you were just talking about the damage counts not long ago, Tower, with just the 20 HP remaining for Ray Tan on his base, every unit matters here for John Tata, and there may be a position we saw things like Luke Skywalker and Home One, where John is really able to start putting on some pressure pretty quickly.
That's right. Now, Ray Tan's Cad Bane does have a shield as a result of that relentless pursuit because Cad Bane is a bounty hunter. Relentless pursuit, as well as there are several bounty hunter trait synergy cards in this game. So relentless pursuit, actually the Mist Hunter that we were seeing earlier, and then there are a few others as well. Cards like the Bounty Guild Initiate or Toro Calican. So the bounty hunter trait is not necessarily the most prominent trait synergy. It's not on the same level as force or rebel or something like that, but there are some quite relevant effects there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Excellent point. Look at this interesting play that we saw from Ray Tan playing Waylay, actually bouncing Bazine back to his own hand. Now we do see Ray deployed. And Ray comes out and is going to get hit by Cad. 4 damage onto Ray. The shield token on Cad is removed. And now Ray is going to attack into, I believe. Did Ray attack into Tarkin Town there?
Hmm.
John Tata restored the 3 from his base, but I don't see 3 damage on either Cad or Tarkin Town. Not sure exactly where the attack went.
Let's see here. Now, what are we looking at here?
Oh, here's
Ray,
a great play. Now there are 2 of them into the 7-cost Cad Bane unit, capturing all the X-Wing tokens. Those X-Wing tokens are now gone permanently.
that is absolutely right, Josh, and it is a very strong counter to those X-wing tokens. Token units, when captured, are simply defeated. There is no opportunity to rescue them. So even if John Tata has some answer to that unit Cad Bane, he's not going to get the X-wings back that he had put on the board with that timely reinforcements earlier.
What a strong play there. Now we do see Ray is going to attack into Raytan's base once again, putting the damage total up to 11. And John Tata being able to restore again back to just 2 HP on the base. And now Raytan will replay the Bazine Natal. But my goodness, John Tata now has, I believe, 7 cards in hand.
And those 7 cards include 2 copies of Fell the Dragon, 2 copies of Home 1, a Luke, and a Ewing reinforcements. John Tata has some extremely powerful endgame cards in this hand. What do you take here if you're Ray Tan?
If I'm Ray Tan, I'm shell shocked right now. This
Yeah.
hand is absolutely brutal. You've got options for the big things like CAD. You have multiple big plays like Home One and Luke. I mean, I guess you could just target maybe the Luke or the U-Wing reinforcement and hope he doesn't draw into another one of those. But we're looking at 2 Fell the Dragon and 2 Home One.
Yeah, sometimes you play a Bazine and you're hoping to take out your opponent's like one good endgame card that they might have. But it's a bit of a problem if that was Raytan's plan because John Tata has 4 good endgame cards in hand, plus the Fell the Dragons that are very relevant in this scenario.
Yeah,
Thinking it over here maybe for Raytan.
I do believe that if you asked John Tata, what would you like in your hand right now? This is probably the 7 cards that he would want. Maybe the Yoda's something else, but this is about perfect.
Yeah, it is kind of a dream hand there for John Tata. He may be at a disadvantage, but with that incredible hand, he has quite a few options to continue the game. And it looks like the U-Wing reinforcement now being played here.
Yeah, let's see what John Tata finds off of the U-Wing reinforcement. Will likely have several options again. Now, after this U-Wing tower, you've got Ray Tan has used up his resources, but you still have Cad Bane ready. Do you think Ray Tan is wanting to go ahead and get Ray off the board?
I mean, I think it would be prudent. So Ray is swinging for 3, which isn't a huge amount of damage, but the problem is Ray is also 3. So each swing from Ray is really a swing of 6 total HP, 3 from whatever Ray damaged, and then from the healing on John Tata's base. And that is a ton of value, even if the actual power is not that high on the card. And take a look at this. It looks like a clone deserter, Mon Mothma, and Admiral Akbar. So Admiral Akbar going to be able to hit something for 4 here.
Yeah, that is another big time find for John. We saw him, I believe it was the first game he found 3 units off of U-Wing reinforcement. He's done it once again, and the Mon Mothma will get more value. He will be able to search for a Rebel card, and then, yeah, that Admiral Akbar will be able to put 4 damage somewhere. Let's see what he does. Going to do Mon Mothma first.
Imagine if he finds another Luke or Home One here.
Yeah, at this point, this game too.
Looks like it's going to be a blue leader found by Mon Mothma there. That is actually a major threat to Leader Cad. Who will be the target for the 4 damage here from Admiral Akbar? It's going to be Leader Cad.
Now the action does go back over to Ray Tan. Staring down a very developed ground arena, still has the Ray leader. And you know that you've got some very big threats coming out, potentially starting next turn. You do have the answer for the big 7 cost Cad Bane in John's hand as well with Fell the Dragon.
Let's see here. Krofna saying raise hand, very powerful. Yeah, it is. It is some of the stronger cards in the game here in Tada's hand now, and now one interesting thing is that Ewing reinforcement didn't get 7 resources of value. That was 5 resources of value, but deploying 3 cards with 1 card is kind of strong in its own right.
Yeah, still pretty good value overall, I think, for John Tana there. I think he's probably pretty satisfied with that U-Wing reinforcement. I don't think there was, he's not in a spot where he had to find a very specific card like a Sentinel unit or multiple Sentinel units like he needed at the end of game one. He's in a very dominant position right now in this game, given what he has in his hand and the fact that he only has 2 damage on his base.
There's another factor here that I think is also quite good for John Tada, and that is once that Cad Bane is defeated, the bright hope that he captured with the relentless pursuit is going to come back on John Tada's side of the board and be a substantial obstacle in space.
Yeah, that is a really good point as well. The Bright Hope will be able to start applying some more pressure because at least up to this point, Raytan has not utilized the space arena at all here in game two. So we saw Bright Hope get in for some damage earlier in this game and could certainly do that once back on the board. Now we do see Raytan attacking and defeating leader unit Ray, getting that
If
value off the board.
if I'm John Tada, I'm fine with that though. That's going to leave Ray Tan's leader on P. Tada could attack with Mon Mothma, trade Mon Mothma for that Cad Bane, and in doing so, get the Bright Hope back on the board.
I think that is a line John Tata probably thinking about right now. You love to see Cad Bane with just 1 HP remaining, knowing that Bright Hope, of course, certainly a great presence for you in the space arena if Raytan decides to go that route. And we're going to see a first action for John Tata is actually going to be Fell the Dragon, going to take out the big Cad Bane unit before the 7-cost unit ever gets a chance to take a swing.
Here comes a Bosk from Ray Tan, and that ambush from Bosk could take out any of these units. Which one would you pick, Josh, if you were Ray Tan here?
Think personally, I probably go for the Clone Deserter. That's my initial pick. I get the extra card right away from the bounty as well. You're restoring one. You're restoring one from either Akbar or Deserter, but I think the Deserter with the extra power, I'm probably going after the bounty unit.
Yeah, I think that would be my pick too. The ambush there taking out, if it does take out the Clone Deserter, not only power from the opponent's side of the board, it also gets you that card draw. But it looks like Ray Tan's pick is actually going to be Admiral Akbar.
So Akbar defeated, just 1 damage back on Bosk. And now John Tata, he's got the next action. We're still set up for Mon Mothma to take out Cad Bane. So Cad Bane leader
Now,
unit is defeated, and there is
wait a
that
minute
bright
here.
hope.
Shouldn't Mon Mothma survive this on 1 HP? He didn't
Yeah,
have a blaster or anything, did he? So he only has 2 power. I had thought it was gonna be a trade. I had said that, but I think she should still be alive.
yeah, I do believe you are right. That Mon Mothma was not damaged, and Cad Bane only deals 2 damage when defending.
Now, I
The
don't know if
attack
it necessarily matters all that much. This isn't one of those matchups where like you have to have random small units to, take Power of the Dark Side or Avenger hits or whatever. But I do believe Mon Mothma should remain on the board.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you there, Tower. I do think Mon Mothma should still be in John Tata's ground arena. Now, Ray Tan is going to bounce Bazine here, dealing 3 damage with McClunky. That defeats the clone deserter, so Ray Tan can claim that bounty, draw a card, and then the CAD looks like he signaled for the. Oh,
I
no, it
think
wasn't
that
the CAD,
was
excuse
two,
me,
I
I think
think
it's the
that was
boss.
2
Yep, it
damage
is the
from
boss.
Bosk's ability. Yeah, yeah.
Is this the 3rd time that Ray has played, or that Ray Tan has played the Bazine here in this game?
Oh, and I see here we have a clarification here. Claire informing us that Cad Bane had pinged Mon Mothma, and Tad just resolved the trade in one move instead of bothering to put the damage on. Okay, so they did get that correct. They were just shortcutting it a little bit. And Stevie gets in the chat, jokingly calling his teammate a cheater.
Absolutely hilarious. Gotta love it. But we do
Um,
appreciate the clarification. But once again, look at the hand. We're still looking at multiple home ones. Blue leader, fell the dragon, rivals fall. And it looks like Ray Tan is going to have John discard the blue leader.
Yeah, I think targeting blue leader here is I think it makes sense because under the circumstances, John Tata could pay 5 resources for the blue leader, ambush and kill Bosk and remain alive, which would be a pretty annoying play. So he wants to avoid that fate and get the blue leader out of the hand.
So now moving on to the next round, John Tata has the initiative. Bright Hope, the only unit still on the board for John, but we know that he has plenty of ways to replenish that board. One of the big plays, again, he's been holding on to 2 home ones for quite some time.
Very interesting. Very interesting. 9 resources. What all could we have here? We could so if it's possible that if John Tata can hold out for another resource, he could play a home one, return the blue leader from the discard pile, and then still have 2 resources that he could pay to send it to the ground arena and ambush Bosk. But he's on 9 resources right now, and he would need 10 for that play, so it would have to wait until the next turn.
Yeah, great point for sure. Just 1 resource short for what would be a fantastic play. Now, looks like John's still going to bring us a 7 resource play on this turn. And I know 8 resources. Looks like he is playing home one here.
Yeah, so it is going to be home one, you know what he's going to do? He's just going to generate even more card advantage, bring out another Mon Mothma.
Mon Mothma has gotten so much value for John in this game. Looks like he's going to find R2D2 off the top. One thing
And
this great
now what is the deal here? We're going to have a potential we're gonna have a potential opportunity for Bosk to get some big value. That is one thing I'm seeing about this. Depending on how many events Raytan has, John Tata has a line here that does not remove Bosk this turn. But how many events does Raytan have to get that bonus value from Bosk with?
Yeah, that is a good question. It looks like he's holding at least 1 more event in hand. But one thing is for sure, this Ray Data Vault deck generates so much card advantage. Being able to play Mon Mothma multiple times, you can bounce it with Bright Hope, you can replay it with Home One. Just draws so many cards. We've seen that from this deck in game two. Major card advantage. And one thing it doesn't do, though, Tower, and we're kind of seeing that here, it's been in control of this game, but it doesn't win quickly. It does take a while to kind of build up that presence and just chip away at your opponent. Now, the Home One could start to change that a little bit for John, but we're going to see Bazine attacking into Mon Mothma with Surprise Strike and 2 damage off of that Bosk triggered ability, 2 damage to Home One. And Mon
Now,
Mothma off the board.
now, Josh, you were talking about how this can take a while to resolve the game, and I think that's true. But that's I suppose that's a reason that these players should be happy that there's an untimed cut here.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's another surprise strike. Back-to-back surprise strikes for Ray Tan. 7 damage to John Tata's base, and another 2 damage off of the Bosk triggered ability to Home One. So Home One is going to be taken out with Tarkin Town. You asked, what kind of value can he get out of Bosk? Big value. Home One defeated.
Yeah, that was a big play for Raytan, being able to generate that extra value from Bosk doing the 2 damage when an event is played. Let him set things up with that Tarkin Town that he had saved all game and clear Home One, which is a very powerful unit on Tata's side of the board. Now we're looking at Raytan with a lot of power in the ground arena. John Tata's Bright Hope, the only unit in the space arena, but John Tata is significantly ahead when it comes to base HP.
Yes, he absolutely is. And that Bright Hope, a 3 power after getting the experience token from Ray's action ability. Now, John Tata will take the first action here. He's got the initiative. We know that he should have at least one more Home One in hand. That's an option, but does he play something a little different here? Maybe looking to do something in the ground arena, and it is just going to be the other copy of Home One.
It's going to be the Home One into Blue Leader. Raytan is already discarding his Bosk. This is that play that I was discussing on the previous turn. And John Tata played one Home One on the previous turn, got it removed, then went for the Home One into Blue Leader on the next turn.
Absolutely great play. Spectacular turnaround in the ground arena now for John Tata being able to take out Bosk with the Blue Leader. You talked about that play, and I believe it's pretty clutch right here.
Very interesting stuff. Now, Blue Leader is severely damaged, so Raytan is able to easily clear it out with the Crafty Smuggler there.
Bright Hope getting in for 3, restoring 1 from John Tata's base because of the Home One being in play. Gives each of John his other friendly heroism units. They get restore here.
Looks like Cham Syndulla hitting the board for Raytan and providing an additional resource here. But Raytan's base is getting really low. He only has 8 HP left on that base. If there's like a Fleet Lieutenant or something, we could see a single attack from that Home One ending the game.
You are absolutely right. We see Raytan continuing to pour big threats into the ground arena. But John Tata, again, with what he's showing on the board, he's 2 actions away. Unless he has that Fleet Lieutenant, this game very close to being done. We'll see if Ray has any options to stop John Tata's space arena. And it looks like
Looks like John Tata doesn't have a Fleet Lieutenant.
No, gets in for 7. That's 24 damage on Raytan's base. Does Raytan have a way to stop Bright Hope? John Tata is 1 swing away from sending this game into game, or sending this match into game 3. He doesn't have an answer for Bright Hope, and John Tata is forcing this match to go the distance, tying it up at 1-1.
That's going to be a solid win here for John Tata from the KTOD tournament team. His space You know, Ray Tan had control of the ground arena for a fair amount of time, was even able to stop that first home one thanks to the double Bosk triggers plus Tarkentown, but the second home one was able to close things up. Ray Tan may have done pretty well in the ground arena, but John Tada's very strong space arena was victorious.
Yeah, what a great game there for John. Just absolute value town in that game, being able to generate so much card advantage through those Mon Mothmas and just really had all the answers and the threats that he needed. Ray Tan on the other side, I mean, he had to work so hard to get through some of those big threats like home one. We saw him have to, you know, play two surprise strikes and use Tarkentown to get that home one off the board. And then, of course, just following it up, John plays another one, and that was really the nail in the coffin.
Now, it's really funny. I think, Josh, when Ray Tan played that Bazine Natal and revealed the crazy hand from John Tata with two home ones, a Luke and a U-Wing reinforcement, it was pretty apparent it was going to be a tough end game for the Cad Bane player.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, Ray Tan had to kind of see the writing on the wall pretty early there. I mean, he didn't have much pressure early in the game. There wasn't a lot of damage on John's base whatsoever at that stage, and it's so difficult to fight through all of those big threats and just so many cards, right? I mean, at the end of the day, even if you don't have multiple home ones, John's just able to play unit after unit, multiple threats, and do what this Ray deck likes to do. It just chips away. It may go a little bit slow, but it gets the card advantage. It chips away, and it just kind of outvalues you a lot of times.
Yeah, and it looks here as if we are now it looks here as if we are now taking a quick break. I have an update from Claire that there is a quick bathroom break here for one of our players before we move on to the third and final game of this semifinal match. Let's see how this continues. Now, I'm not sure if we're going to see any major shifts in sideboarding. I think it's more common in this game for people to maintain the same sideboard composition in between games two and three. Usually, you see the big changes between game one and two, and then no update. Though there are some rare cases where you might see some things shift. In particular, if who is going first changes, that can be a scenario where you're going to that can be a scenario where you're going to maybe want to make some changes for specific cards that are much better when going first. An example of that might be that the scanning officer is a wildly better card when going first compared to when going second, because it is most valuable when it causes some of your opponent's resources to be exhausted for the turn. And it is much less likely to do that in a scenario where your opponent's playing before you. So we are on a quick bathroom break here, but I want to check in with the viewers. What do you guys think about this matchup? Who are you rooting for as we move in to game 3, the final game of the match? John Tata here from the KTOD tournament team is a player we've had on several other McClunky Gaming streams, and I know he's had some impressive results in the past. I believe in particular he was a SCGCon winner, and we covered that. And I believe at that time there was even a situation where They played out some games that didn't matter for the ultimate result, just for the viewers on stream, which I thought was a nice thing, and I suppose for bragging rights and so on. But Tada has a top 8 at a sector qualifier, 5 top 8s at PQs. He's won 2 SCG-Con 2K events. He was part of the winning KTOD tournament team from the Beattle 3v3 tournament. And overall, I think he is a very strong competitive player. We'll see whether or not he can complete a comeback win here by winning this third. What will happen? All right. Now we are about to start the game. I think there may have been a quick camera reset or whatever. It seemed like it was slowing down, and but now we are back to a smooth camera. And here we go. Little Happy Trees in chat asking if Wu is on Kira. That is correct. Wu is playing Kira Data Vault, and I believe he is through to the final. So we could potentially, if I am right, and Wu is through to the final on Kira Data Vault, we could potentially see a face-off between John Tata and Wu, two KTOD tournament team competitors playing against each other in the finals. That is the type of thing where if you're running a team, having two of your players face off in the final is really a dream come true. Looks like we're seeing some shuffling here, and we will be getting started shortly. And I think they're making some camera adjustments and now coming back. We should be getting underway with the third and final game of this semifinals match shortly. The winner of this game will win the match and move on to the finals here at the Star Wars Unlimited Regional Qualifier in Minneapolis, Minnesota. There's the fist bump, and we are getting started.
Well, Tower, what a great match it has been so far. Raytan taking game one, John Tata taking game two to force this deciding game three. Now it looks like John is going to start with the initiative. But again, it's been a great match. And you go back to game one. Now, we did not see all that kind of progressed there in the early game. But one thing that Raytan was able to do was get out that Zuckus early with the there are two of them. And that really seemed to help as he really utilized Zuckus to put so much pressure on John on his units and on the base. So I'm wondering if maybe an early play like that is something that Raytan is looking for again.
Now there are two of them can be a very powerful card in the right situation. Now, looking at chat, I see a bunch of viewers are cheering for Ray Tan. I think there's an underdog. I think there's an underdog element to it, and I think Cad Bane is a leader that people are excited to see. But we will see. We will see who ends up prevailing. Looks like there is a Bazina Tall from Raytan removing a resupply from John Tata's hand, and Tata then playing the old C3PO.
Yeah, can't argue with that play from Raytan, taking out John's ramp here early so they cannot just resupply. And here we go, Raytan with the initiative. McClunky going to bounce the Bazine back to hand. Then with the 3 damage from McClunky and the CAD ping, C3PO is defeated, but John's still going to ramp. He's got Spark of Hope, so C3PO becomes a resource.
What an irony. That play seems to have ironically enabled John Tata to Bazine denied the resupply and then cleared the C3PO. That seems great, but unbeknownst perhaps to Ray Tan, John Tata had the spark of hope, allowing him to ramp anyway with the C3PO that was just defeated. Now, Bazine is replayed here, and this time discards a copy of Luke Skywalker.
What a wild first couple turns here. With John Tata still being able to ramp now, he is up to 5 resources, and we're going to see the blue leader coming in and getting the +2/+2 with those 2 experience tokens, ambushing and defeating Bazine. Raytan has his board cleared, but he'll bring out Boba Fett. Cad Bane trigger. Now we've got 2 damage on the blue leader, and that sets up the Tarkin Town to take it out.
Yeah, that blue leader ambush from John Tata, a solid play, but Ray Tan had an answer with a Cad Bane King, followed up by Tarkin Town, Boba Fett Disintegrator, now the only unit on the board, and neither base has taken any damage yet.
Yeah, both of these both of these players trying to get good positioning on the board here early. There's been a lot of back and forth. And now we've got John Tata with the initiative. He is on 6 resources after ramping earlier. So, of course, we can see Ray deployed here. And now we're going to see C3PO for the second time in this game, not getting the extra card this time around. And look at Ray Tan playing. Now there are 2 of them to play Forlom with no extra cost there because it cost 5 less. So Forlom ambushing and defeating that C3PO, and Ray Tan once again just trying to keep this board clear.
Admiral Akbar, it looks like, taking the field here for John Tata.
Now, Admiral Akbar in this place, or in this position, certainly not as effective as it would be if John had a board. Only 1 damage dealt off of Admiral Akbar's win played ability, so Boba Fett still has 4 HP remaining, and now the action back over to Ray Tan. He's actually going to attack into Akbar here.
Now, Ray's ability buffing Akbar is going to mean that even with Boba and the ping there, Akbar lives on 1 HP. Now Ray takes the field.
Ray coming out, set to potentially take out one of these 2 units. It looks like John Tata wants to attack into Boba, maybe thinking it through. He could take
I
out
think you
either
got to take
Forlom
Forlom here.
or
I could
Boba.
be wrong.
Yeah, I think
I
you're right
I
because if
don't like the
Zuckuss comes
prospect of
out,
a
that would
Zuckuss
be bad.
ambush.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly
absolutely.
right.
Those 2 together just become absolutely disgusting.
But it is going to be Boba Fett Disintegrator who's the target and is cleared by John Tata. So we will see what happens here. It is, of course, very possible that Ray Tan won't have Zuckuss, but I think I might have just seen him draw it.
I think you are absolutely right. Raytan has the initiative. Forlom still in play. So if he plays Zuckuss here, Forlom would actually give Zuckuss ambush and it would be given +1/+1. So you would have a 7/7 ambush coming in the ground arena for Raytan if that is the play he decides to take.
Very interesting situation. Of course, we don't know for sure if that's the line, but John Tata might end up worrying about whether it was the right play to leave that Forlom on the board if we do see a Zuckuss ambush. Hard to say though. A lot of things could happen in the game. And earlier we saw John Tata with some extremely strong endgame plays, especially in that second game. And he is getting up into that 7 resource territory where Luke, U-Wing reinforcement, those sorts of cards can start landing, and we could see some real trouble for Ray Tan.
Precisely right, Tower. We are definitely getting into that stage of the game for John Tata to start making some big plays of his own. Definitely going to be interesting. Now, keep in mind earlier in this game, because I was just thinking about Luke Skywalker. Earlier in this game, Bazine did ditch one of John's copies of Luke Skywalker. So the question is, did he replay it? Because if you have that ambush, right? If you have Zuckuss come in and ambush, Luke Skywalker would be a great response. But here it is. Zuck is coming in. He will have ambush. And with the Cad Bane triggered ability, you ambush and defeat the Ray leader. And then the Cad Bane triggered ability, dealing that final damage to defeat Akbar.
Yeah, so not only is it going to get Ray off the board, the ping damage from Cad Bane clearing Akbar as well. Very, very strong play there by Ray Tan.
Now look at this follow-up play. I don't believe we have seen John play this yet in this match. Cargo Juggernaut coming out, not restoring any damage from the base here, but it is a 4/6 with shield, with a shield token in the ground arena.
Yeah, we could see that Cargo Juggernaut clearing out Forlom here. Uh, we could see it just sort of fighting, and even though there wasn't a Vigil unit on the board to enable that heal effect, John Tata didn't have any damage on his base at that time, I believe.
Yeah, that is absolutely right. So we see shield token being traded for shield token, Crafty into cargo juggernaut, and then Raytan actually deploying Cad Bane and getting into John's base, dealing the first damage of this game with Cad Bane leader unit and the Forlom, which also gets buffed up from Zuckus and is now a 5/5. So 9 total damage into Data Vault there.
Ray Tan with a far stronger board than that of Tata at this point, but Tata is entering that phase where he's going to be able to play those very powerful endgame. Home one is now in range. Luke Skywalker's in range. The U-wing reinforcements in range. We'll see what happens here. For now, though, I think that Juggernaut's going to need to try and clear up some of this board.
And that is exactly what the Juggernaut does. John Tata using the Cargo Juggernaut to attack and trade with the big 7/7 Zuckus. Now with Zuckus off the board, Forlom back down to just a 4/4. Will get in for 4 damage. John Tata's base up to 13. And looks like we're going to see a big play. It is the first U-Wing reinforcement of Game 3.
Yeah, now the damage has really been adding up a bit on John Tata's base, while Ray Tan's base is still untouched. I believe we're looking at 13 damage here for Tata on a 33 HP data vault. That means there's 20 HP left, while Ray Tan has the full 25 HP left. So right now, Ray is in the better position, but we're about to see that U-wing reinforcement land, just like you said, Josh. Let's see what John Tata can find.
You know, and I don't know if maybe he just decided not to play it or he has not found another one, but that Bazine taking out Luke Skywalker early in this game from John's hand, that may have been a very, very big deal. Now we see once again, we saw this earlier in the match, John Tata finding 3 units off of U-Wing reinforcement. He's got Bright Hope, Clone Deserter, and Mon Mothma. So of course he'll be able to get some more value off of Mon Mothma. We'll see how he orders it. He could even bounce one of those units back with Bright Hope to draw an extra card.
Yeah, we could potentially see a double draw here. So Mon Mothma's ability is being resolved. We'll see if John Tata also opts to resolve the Bright Hope when played ability after Mon Mothma's ability goes off. He could potentially bounce Mon Mothma back to hand and draw another card from Bright Hope, then potentially allowing him to play Mon Mothma in a subsequent turn and get her search the top 5 ability again.
Yeah, such a good
It
effect
looks like
in
he's
this
thinking
deck.
it. Yeah, he's doing it.
He's doing it,
Extra
yeah.
card draw.
Yeah, that is the true value engine of this deck. Mon Mothma coming in, being able to bounce it back to hand with the Bright Hope, getting the extra card. So much card advantage here for John Tata. Now, the only thing is, though, we still have the ground arena wide open. You've got the Bright Hope, a space sentinel, but there's no ground sentinel. That means, again, the door is open. Hotshot Blaster smuggled into Cad Bane. That's going to be 6 damage to John Tata's base.
Ray Tan is really putting the pressure on John Tata's base, and unlike some of the previous games, we haven't seen a huge amount of restore hitting the field for John Tata. We do have restore 1 on the clone deserter, but there's now 19 damage on John Tata's base, only 14 HP left.
Now, I like this play. I believe after the Cad Bane attack, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I saw it maybe it went a little differently, but you had the experience token put on Clone Deserter, and then I think you had Ray Tan claim the initiative.
I think that's right, Josh. I believe that the at least that crafty smuggler was still up and could potentially have swung, but Ray Tan decided I want the initiative more than I want this 2 damage right now. I wonder what he was keeping that initiative for. Are we going to see, for instance, another Bazine or something trying to eliminate threats from Tada's hand? Are we going to just try and guarantee a swing with Cad Bane before a potential Sentinel can come up? Let's see what happens.
That's kind of my first thought. Maybe he's just wanting
It's
to
going to be
make sure he
Forlom.
gets more damage in, and he does attack with Forlom first. It is 4 damage. That is more than the Crafty Smuggler would have done last turn. So we're going up to 23 damage on John Tada's base. We've yet to put 1 damage on Raytan's base so far in Game 3.
Yeah, I think that swing from Forlom means that the clone deserter is not going to be able to trade for Forlom, which would prevent a bunch of incoming damage. We could still see the clone deserter removing the crafty smuggler here to block 2 incoming damage and heal John Tada's base for 1, but then we would still have the potential attack from Cad Bane with the hotshot blaster landing for 6 more. John Tada's base HP is really in the danger zone here.
It absolutely is. What does John have? Does he have some kind of ground sentinel or a way to take care of this very threatening Cad Bane leader unit? It looks like John is holding on to a copy of Fell the Dragon, but Fell the Dragon only defeats non-leader units. And not only that, but Cad Bane is only 4 power right now. He attacks, he gets the raid 2, so he attacks for 6, but right now on defense, he's only 4 power.
All right. At least right now, I'm liking this state if I'm Ray Tan.
Oh, absolutely. I think this is a much better position for Ray Tan here in game 3 than where we were at in game 2. This almost feels a lot more like a repeat of game 1. He's been able to get that good pressure so far in this game, and he has commanding presence in the ground arena. Now, here is a big play from John Tada. We're going to
Home
see
one.
home 1.
He's
And
gonna bring
what is he?
Akbar out to ping off that smuggler. Yeah, that's exactly right.
There you go. Okay, so the crafty smuggler down, but the door is open, and we see Cad Bane swinging for 6 damage, putting John Tada to just 4 HP remaining on base.
John Tata might just have to take the initiative here. Doesn't do it. Takes the trade that heals the base by 1, but he's in range. Ray Tan can just take the initiative and swing with Cad, right? What would John Tata have that could possibly stop Cad for 1?
I don't think there's any option
Wait,
to
wait, wait.
stop him for
He
1, is
does
there?
get to heal. He does get to heal by swinging with Bright Hope for the restore 1 on it because of his home 1, and that would put him at 26, which means that that the Cad Bane swing would be off by 1 unless there was another pump. So it's possible if Raytan can't find another pump that John Tata has pulled himself back from the brink with that home 1 granting restore to his other units. Does Raytan have any pump? A hot shot blaster from the resources, a surprise strike, even a, quote unquote lesser pump like breaking in or something would be enough to win this. He just needs 1 more point of damage, but if he can't find it, Tada has a lot of restore on the board.
Yeah, a lot of restore. That becomes a big problem. And I'm almost kind of curious here. Did Raytan realize that Bright Hope was going to be able to take him off of Fatal? And so you just had Raytan claiming the initiative. He did not play anything. He didn't spend any resources last turn. So he's left with only the Cad Bane leader unit right now.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I thought he had it, but if he doesn't have a pump, he might not. It's
Yeah,
possible that 1 restore from home 1 on Bright Hope has saved John Tata here, but we're going to have to see what happens.
what a turn of events this could be if John Tata could stabilize here and turn the corner in game 3. What does Raytan have? Again, not pushing anything else on the board last turn. Is that going to be detrimental to him as we move forward in home one right now, unimpeded and providing so much restore on this board?
I don't think he has it. If he has it, he's got to just play.
Right now, unimpeded and providing so much restore on this board.
I don't think he has it. If he has it, he's got to just play it, right? Like
Right.
if he has it, I wouldn't be taking so much time deciding what to resource and deciding what the turn looks like. Here, what will Raytan do to try to counter this home one? Maybe he has it though. Who knows? Maybe he's maybe he's playing it slow for the hype moment for the stream. What will Raytan do?
It all comes down to this. Raytan has the first action. He has resourced. He doesn't have the
No
pump.
pump.
6
No pump.
damage. Oh,
Tada is still
man.
alive.
Still has 1 HP remaining, and he can restore a ton here between Admiral Akbar's restore, the restore that Home 1 is granting these units, and the restore that's on Home 1 also.
Yeah, how much he has what, 5 points of restore here across all this stuff? So that would take him to 27, but then another attack from Cad would win the game. So he's got to find some way to stop or block Cad as well. Very interesting situation.
Now here comes Fleet Lieutenant, and that is going to allow Admiral Akbar to attack into Cad Bane for a total of 3 damage. John restoring 2 from his base, 1 restore printed on Admiral Akbar, and another restore 1 from Home 1. And here's Waylay. That's going to stop some of this restore. Home 1 is bounced back to John's hand.
Now, this is really interesting. It does mean that Home 1 can potentially be replayed and trigger that when played effect again later in the game. Oh,
Oh,
look at
and his
that.
blue leader comes in, ambushes, and defeats the CAD leader unit. And now Raytan has no units on the board.
John Tata was so close to the edge, but thanks to the restore and Raytan not being able to find a pump, he came back from the brink here. What will Raytan have here to threaten Tata? He's got to get something out here. Jabba the Hutt. Jabba's very high HP actually makes it a very useful unit in this scenario.
Absolutely. He also gets to search the top 8 cards of his deck for a trick. And look at this. He's found Waylay once again, which is certainly a viable card in this spot because we know that we could see Home 1 yet again.
Now, once again, if Raytan draws another pump, Hutt swings for lethal.
But he's got 2 ready resources and a 3-power Bright Hope in the space arena.
Now, we do also know that John Tata has access to that Home 1 that Raytan bounced this turn with Waylay. He could play that Home 1 and trigger its when played ability again. And I think we just saw him looking through his cards in the discard pile in order to see what options he might have for that Home 1 next turn. Is that a
So
Mon Mothma?
Yes, it is. So John Tata will once again try to find a rebel card here, and you pretty much find one every time in this deck. So a miss with Mon Mothma, extremely rare, and he does find a rebel. It's Admiral Akbar.
If Raytan takes the initiative here and can find any pump, it's basically the same situation as last turn. Look at the base HP. It's 30 for John Tata. If Raytan can find any pump, including a hotshot blaster that he could smuggle out, Jabba the Hutt can swing into the base and close this game. But if he
It's
can't,
it. He drew it.
has
He
it.
got surprise strike. He drew it off the top. What a match. Raytan finds the pump he needs. He's going to the finals in Minneapolis.
What a match that was. So close. It almost looked like John Tata was going to be able to come back from the brink and stabilize after Ray took the initiative and then couldn't find a pump to close things with Cad, but Jabba the Hutt able to get in there with the surprise strike and win. Excellent match there from both of these players, and Raytan with Cad Bane Tarkentown is moving on to the finals.
Absolutely fantastic gameplay. This is what we're all here for. This is what we want to see. And Ray Tan taking down a phenomenal player in John Tata. And we are going to have a Cura Data Vault versus CAD Tarkentown finals here in Minneapolis. Who would have guessed that CAD Tarkentown was going all the way to the finals this weekend?
And I think we've also seen Yeah, I think we've also seen a result that the viewers in chat might be excited about. We had a lot of people who were rooting for Raytan as the perceived underdog and as someone playing a less usual deck, and he was able to get that win. So congratulations to Raytan. Well played to John Tata. Well done for going so far in this event. And we will see what's going to happen as we move on to the final match of this event.
Absolutely thrilling stuff. It's been a pleasure to call it with you, Tower. Can't wait to see what happens in the final. I think we may step away for just a very brief break, and then we're going to come right back and have the finals here in Minneapolis. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the McClunky Gaming coverage of the Minneapolis, Minnesota Regional Star Wars Unlimited TCG. We are about to have the final match. It is going to be Ray Tan, who we just saw wielding his CAD Tarkentown deck to defeat John Tata, playing against one of John Tata's KTOD tournament team teammates, Ophir, aka Wu, who will be playing on Kira Data Vault. I am Tower number 9, joined here by Josh from Next Gen Gaming SC, and we are excited to move on to this final match.
Absolutely. It has been a pleasure all weekend, and we're going to have Wu on Cura Data Vault taking on Cad Bane Tarkentown. We take a look at the Cura deck list. This is one we're all probably pretty familiar with. Wu has put out a couple videos of this deck very recently. He won a PQ not long ago with this deck list. Is there anything that's really standing out to you here, Tower, in this specific matchup?
You know, it's going to be interesting here. I think that the Kira Data Vault deck has a pretty powerful set of options, especially if it manages to get to the end game. And we've seen Kira Data Vault get some really strong results with those big capital ships and so on. So I think that it's possible CAD Tarkentown is going to have to be more aggressive this time. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. This deck, this Cura deck, has such a powerful late game. And if we get to that stage, Cad's late game is really no match for what Cura can do. So Cad will absolutely have to be aggressive here. These late game capital ships, things like Reinforcement Walker, it's just going to be very, very difficult to get through the game if we get into the late stages. That's where Wu is going to want to push this match. We'll see if he can make that happen.
All right. And I believe players are doing they're doing the deck review process, using the bathroom, getting ready. It's an interesting situation here.
Now we do
Little
see.
fair bit of stuff that you have to do before a game, and in the finals, especially in an untimed finals, they are probably proceeding at a comparatively more leisurely pace. Things aren't as rushed as they might be when everyone is going to get seated in a Swiss round with hundreds of players.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we are going to take a look at the Cad Bane Tarkentown deck. Again, as we talked about, we're going to want to see Cad be very aggressive here, playing out multiple threats if possible. You have to try and dodge things like Power of the Dark Side. So if you can put multiple threats on the board, that's exactly what Ray will want to do. He does have several early plays that he can make. He's got the one drop in Greedo, so he certainly can try to push the board wide, and that will help. You also see something that really stands out to me in this matchup. Out of the sideboard, you've got Champs and Dula, which of course is great because you know Kira's going to be looking to ramp, and that lurking TIE Phantom can be extremely impactful and really strong against a blue villainy control type deck like Kira.
All right. It's been an interesting road here from the it's been an interesting road here to the top 8. It looks like Ray Tan also played against I believe he also played against another KTOD player, CJ, aka Chrono, the one Sabine player who had made the top 8, and defeated him in the top 8. So he's taken out two KTOD players on his way to the finals. Can he defeat another KTOD player to win the whole event? Or is Wu, who was the top player in Swiss, going to be able to get the win here?
Yeah, that is so interesting. Ray has had to have a path of KTOD that he's had to go through to get to the finals. And now it's once again up against KTOD. So should be exciting. And it looks like Ray is back, and it looks like we're going to be getting this final match underway momentarily as both players have at least 2 or 3 minutes to go over each other's deck list and maybe try to come up with some kind of game plan.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to consider the game that these decks have on offer. I know that Wu's build does have those powerful endgame ships, does have a copy of Supreme Leader Snoke, also has some super laser blasts for reset, both Vader and Maul, reinforcement walker. I really think a lot of the game plan with a Kira deck like this is to try and ramp early, try and sort of reset things with a Kira flip into overwhelming barrage if possible, and then move towards your very powerful endgame as quick as you can. That being said, we there are some things that could be potential obstacles. I know there are potential ways that the Cad Bane deck here could ambush and defeat Kira when she flips before an overwhelming barrage could be played. So Forlom and Bosk can both ambush and defeat Kira. Zuckuss can ambush and defeat Kira if Forlom is in play. And ultimately, we could also see a hotshot deal 44 blaster or a surprise strike on a range of ground units, enabling them to take out Kira as well. Potentially even a McClunky coupled with Cad Bane's ability if Kira is the only unit on the field. So there are a lot of ways that this Cad Bane deck could potentially counter against the Kira flip into overwhelming barrage game plan.
Yeah, I think that is so true. Very solid points. And you know that Ray's going to have to keep those things in the back of his mind because you certainly don't want Kira to get big advantage from that Kira flip into barrage and essentially just wipe the board sometimes, as that would be a position at that stage in the game that would be very difficult for Ray to recover at that point. So he's definitely going to want to try and avoid that if he can. Again, you talked about it. The ramp is important. We know that Cham Syndulla can come in for Ray out of the sideboard, but at least in game one, he'll just have to deal with being at least a resource behind if Wu is able to ramp, and we'll see how he deals with that. Now, another thing that we saw in game one, the early now there are two of them can also be impactful. If you can get one of those big units out, again, you've got two units at that point. So say you could get a turn two Zuckuss, it does dodge the power of the dark side right away if you had one of those early units out on turn one. So that could be another line to be very aggressive for Ray is get the now there are two of them, get one of those big units out early and start trying to put on some big pressure while you dodge things like Power of the Dark Side.
Yeah, it should be pretty interesting to see what's going to happen here. I think we have a we have two very different leaders and builds, and it should be interesting to see how they interact. Rolling off here. Let's see what happens. They're shuffling up. We're doing, I think, a quick camera reset here. Yep, Claire says refreshing the video feed. And here we go.
All comes down to this, Tower. We have had quite the weekend, 13 rounds of Swiss, followed by this top eight cut. So technically, we are in round 16 of the weekend. We have had so much Star Wars Unlimited action, and man, we have had some super thrilling matches, including the last one that was so close to seeing the Ray Data Vault deck turn the corner, but we had Cad Bane Tarkintown coming out on top with the surprise strike. That was thrilling, and now we get to see hopefully another thrilling match here in the finals. But Tower, it has been a blast all weekend, and I can't wait to see the outcome here.
Yeah, let's hope that we have an exciting finals, just like we had some of those exciting, matches previously. Looks like Ray is resourcing, Wu is shuffling up, and we are about to get going here. Or wait, no, it's the opposite. One moment. I think the overlay is reversed here. We should get that fixed shortly.
Now, this is a matchup that overall, this is a tough matchup for Cad. Is it winnable? Yes, it's winnable, but very specific lines. Ray is going to have to push presence on the board, multiple threats. There's a lot that's going to have to go right for Ray. Bazine could also be important, maybe picking off some key pieces of removal or late game plays for Wu. So we'll see how it turns out. But Ray certainly going to have a little bit of an uphill battle in this particular matchup. Now, we do see Bazine coming out early for Ray here to start the finals. And we are going to strip a card here. Wu will get to draw, and it looks like he stripped, I believe, the resupply.
Yeah, you know, Bazine Natal, definitely a relevant factor here, trying to prevent the opponent from hitting some of their key plays. So blocking a resupply is big. Another thing that Bazine can do is potentially prevent an overwhelming barrage when the time comes there.
You know, this strategy worked out in game three, I believe, last round in the semifinals. You had Ray play that Bazine and strip resupply, strip the ramp out of John's hand. Now, he ended up still being able to ramp with Spark of Hope, but in the end, it seems like a strong play. You definitely want to keep your opponent off the ramp if you can.
All right.
So it's Cartel Spacer coming out, exhausting that Hilo Bond Enforcer, and now Power of the Dark Side in response for Wu.
Power of the Dark Side. What do you do here? What do you do here, Josh? If you're Ray, do you just lose your Bazine or lose your copy of Cartel Spacer?
If he's not planning on bouncing that Bazine, you probably just take out the Bazine, and it looks like that is the play here. So Ray opts to keep the space play, and now we're going to see Forlom coming out, ambushing the Hilo Bond Enforcer, which does allow Ray to claim that bounty and draw a card.
All right, here we go.
Cartel Spacer getting in for two, and it looks as though Wu does not have a play here on turn
Uh-oh.
three. So that could be a little bit of a bad sign for Wu here. If you're Ray, that's a little bit of an open door. You got to like to see that.
That is very negative for that is not at all it is not at all what you want if you are it is not at all what you want if you are trying to get into position here. No ramp. Man, no play on that. That is tough. But Wu could potentially try and get Kira onto the field to clear things up.
Now we do see that devastating gunship coming out. And with the Forlom only having 2 HP remaining, or excuse me, just 1 HP remaining, I believe, you have the devastating gunship defeating Forlom. So it does help take some of the pressure off the board, and then Cartel Spacer getting in for 2.
Gotcha. All right.
The action back
Greedo
on
on the
Ray.
field. Ping. Now the ping actually buffs the devastating gunship somewhat, but it also gets it closer to being defeated.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking as well. You do have the grit on devastating gunship, so each damage it takes just becomes stronger, will hit for more. Now, this is just a thought, but I'm almost wondering here, maybe Ray has another way to deal some damage, but Wu has no ability to shield up the gunship here this round. If Ray has a way to deal an extra damage, it puts the gunship in range of Tarkentown, which could be extremely important to get the gunship off the board.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Josh. I think that devastating gunship is a powerful unit, but it could potentially be removed here. just a little bit of extra damage coupled with that Tarkentown would be enough to get the devastating gunship off of the board. Also, interestingly, if Kira flips, she'll actually put an extra point of damage on the devastating gunship, and that would put it in a position where Tarkentown could clear it as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And it looks like I do believe the Tarkentown, no, the Tarkentown not used, but we do have the devastating gunship off the board, and then Agent Callus, I believe, coming in and defeating, I believe it was Greedo, and takes 3 damage back. So Ray has had his board cleared here, and
Still
Wu
has some resources though,
with the advantage. Yeah, he does. He plays Crafty Smuggler.
and it looks
And
like
with
Cad Bane's ping from that crafty smuggler play is enough to eliminate Agent Callus.
Oh, and this is interesting here, Tower. Look at that top card in the discard pile. It's a Bazine. I believe that he discarded that Bazine off of the Greedo trigger. Bazine seems to be a pretty important card in this matchup, so that could be detrimental as we move forward in this game, as Bazine not an option.
All right. When are we going to see some leaders flip here?
That is an excellent question.
Now there are
What
two
is
of them.
Okay, now there are 2 of them. We're gonna play Jabba essentially for 3 resources, and Ray will be able to search the top 8 cards of his deck for a trick event here.
Let's see. Let's see what Raytan can find.
Doesn't look like he took
Looks like a
anything
miss.
into his hand. Yeah, I do believe it's a miss. Now we're going to have Kira deployed, and Forlom comes out immediately ambushing and defeating Kira.
That is
Quick
just the sort of
response to Kira.
scenario we were discussing earlier where Ray has an answer for Kira, but now Wu's going to be bringing out Darth Vader.
Yeah, Darth Vader coming in, going to create quite a board presence, finding 2 units here to play out of the top 10 cards. You've got Hilo Bond Enforcer and the Dr. Pershing, and then Vader, it looks like, is going to, maybe it wasn't. Was it not Pershing? It looks like he took out the Jabba here. I didn't think Jabba had any damage. Maybe I missed something.
I think Jabba was damaged by the Kira flip there. They
Oh,
may not
that's
have
right.
had the
Yep, yep.
damage.
Had
They may
4
not have
left.
had the damage on the card. I'm not sure, but should have taken some substantial damage there.
Yeah, you're right with the Kira flip, and that means that just 4 HP remaining. You had Vader being able to ambush and defeat Jabba, which now, once again, Ray just 1 unit on his side of the board, the Crafty Smuggler.
Now we could see Ray swing Crafty Smuggler into Vader, take him down to 3 HP, and then Tarkentown to clear him. But then if Ray were to deploy Cad Bane after that, it would be a scenario where a power of the dark side could get Cad off the field.
Does look like that is the setup here. Crafty dealing the 2 damage to Vader, defeated in the process. Tarkin Town, epic action used. Vader defeated, Cad deployed, and Cad Bane is going to attack and defeat the Hilo Bond Enforcer here. It's the second time this game we've seen Hilo Bond out and defeated. Ray claiming the bounty, gets to draw a card.
That 1 damage on Ray's Cad Bane does mean that Cad Bane is now in range of a Maul ambush.
Yeah, that is an excellent point, and we know that there are at least 2 copies of Maul. Yeah, it's 2 copies of Maul in this Cura Data Vault deck. Now we're going to see Super Laser Blast after the Forlom comes out, and that's going to wipe the board. Ray will immediately put another threat in the Space Arena with the Mist Hunter, but the big threats, including the CAD leader unit, defeated here.
I have to say, I think this scenario is pretty favorable for Wu. So in a certain sense, you could argue that Wu is behind. In particular, he has nothing on the board and Ray has this hunter. But the problem with that is that from Wu's perspective, he wants the game to go long and he still has 29 HP on that base.
Yeah, it is a huge hill to climb right now for Ray, as we're into the late game now. Wu has access to 9 resources. We can start seeing these big capital ships, the big late game plays, and it becomes more and more difficult moving forward for Ray.
All right.
Now another big play from Wu. We see the reinforcement walker coming in, and then we've got Zuckuss on the other side of the board. Mist Hunter will get some value here. And Waylay is going to bounce the reinforcement walker back to Wu's hand. So now Ray does have a nice little board presence with Zuckuss and the Mist Hunter.
Yeah, that's a real presence. These are some real things here. This is not an empty board at all. But Wu is getting closer to those capital ships.
He certainly is getting close to those big capital ships. We could see that at any time. Now we do see Fell the Dragon for Wu defeating Zuckuss. And then Ray is just going to play the Cad Bane 7-cost unit, not capturing anything here, just playing it as a 7/7 threat in the ground arena.
The old Dark Trooper. There was a fell on Zuckuss. I think a Cad Bane was played to not capture anything. Then we see a phase 3 Dark Trooper creating a Sentinel. Mist Hunter swings and draws a card, and then Wu brings out a Super Laser Technician. There's some difficulties with the camera here, so I'm kind of reconstructing this based on not the smoothest footage in the world. It looks like it's in a better state now, and Ray Tan has also brought out a Greedo this turn. Let's see what happens as we move into this next turn. Hey, there's that overwhelming barrage. Overwhelming barrage for 5.
So it at least cleans up 2 of these units. Greedo and Mist Hunter defeated. And once again, Ray back down to just 1 threat.
And this does also mean a Power of the Dark Side at this point could clear that 7/7 Cad Bane, which would be a pretty favorable development for Wu. Additionally, if Ray swings Cad to clear the phase 3 Dark Trooper, it would then leave Cad at only 2 HP, and the Super Laser Technician could take the trade.
Yeah, plenty of options for Wu to take out this Cad Bane unit.
Looks like Crafty Smuggler enters the field here for Ray Tan. 2/2 shielded, not the most valuable unit at this point in the game. Also, potentially a unit that the Phase 3 Dark Trooper could attack into to give itself an experience. Not sure that would necessarily be a prudent play, but it might be a little funny. I think Ray was looking through his opponent's discard pile there.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough spot for Ray. We see the crafty smuggler, but we've talked about it at this stage of the game. Only 7 damage on Wu's base. It's the worst possible spot you could be in at this stage of the game. Ray needs to be able to put so much more pressure on, but Wu has done a great job at controlling this board. And we are going to see McClunky for Ray here, bouncing the crafty smuggler back to hand, dealing 3 to the Dark Trooper. And look at this, it's another overwhelming barrage onto the Dark Trooper in the same turn. It has +4/+4 now, 7 total power, defeating Cad Bane.
What a play. Double overwhelming barrages on the same unit. That is not something you see every day.
Yeah, that is in all of the games I've played of Star Wars Unlimited, maybe I've seen that one other time where double barrage happens onto the same unit. Crazy play from Wu, but it gets that big 7/7 Cad Bane off the board.
Avenger also hitting the field here for Wu.
And that's going to take out that crafty smuggler. Wu in complete control of the board now.
All right. And Jabba the Hutt finds a waylay, it looks like.
And at this point, it's so difficult because you have Avenger on the board, and the Avenger is just going to keep removing these units. So Ray has to put multiple units on the board, or else this Avenger is just going to keep clearing everything that Ray puts down.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Of course, the Avenger has the win played and on attack ability. It forces your opponent to defeat a non-leader unit that they control. So if you just have one leader, or excuse me, one unit on the board, it's gone every time the Avenger would attack.
It's a tough situation here for Ray Tan. Tough situation here for Ray Tan. Wu does seem ahead, given his more powerful endgame in this matchup. The more control-oriented build here, Ray was not able to find a lot of damage early on. And we have just a quick announcement. We are actually going to close our coverage here because there are major issues with this broadcast. This is we were sort of a split video feed. This is the C Raptor video feed being split across 3 channels, and something about the video splitting is causing major quality issues. So what we're going to recommend that you do is, if you're currently watching the stream, thanks for the support. Thanks for tuning into McClunky Gaming. But we would suggest that you move over to the C Raptor channel at this time. If we are just putting this stuff on one feed,